Hello, everybody. This is Joshua, and I have Brad here with me today.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We're from the Casual Planeswalker.
And we'd like to talk to you a little bit today about a really fun sort of budget version of Green-Red Eldrazi Tron. It's a pretty fun little twist on it, and it's a deck. If any of you are familiar with Eldrazi Tron, that quite quickly adds up into the $400 or $500 range. For funsies, we thought, hey, let's see if we can make it a little bit cheaper.
And still good.
And still good. That's the key. I think we've done just that, actually. I think a good way to start is to show the original deck that we built this off of.
Yeah, that's a good way. If you're not familiar with the soul-crushing thing that is Eldrazi Tron.
All right. And so, basically, Green-Red Eldrazi Tron, depending on which time you're looking at it, is it places pretty frequently in a lot of modern tournaments. We have a version right here. Walking Ballista is pretty popular in it. You've got Wormcoil Engines, World Breakers, and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. Honestly, these are extremely expensive cards. They're great value, they're awesome, and they win tournaments, but if you're looking for budget, honestly, the only thing you're probably going to be able to afford is the World Breaker in this. So, moving on, though, to the Planeswalkers, we've got Karn Liberated and Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Now, if you start looking at these, you'll notice Karn Liberated is extremely expensive. You don't really want to be playing this if you're on a budget. However, Ugin the Spirit Dragon is super cheap. That's what we're looking for. So we're probably going to be dropping Karn Liberated and throwing in Ugin Spirit Dragons. Moving on to the lands, we got some forests. Grove of the Burn Willows. If you're on a budget, you're not touching those. You're going to be leaning more towards Karplusan Forest. Karplusan Forest deals 1 damage to you, which is much, much worse than letting your opponent gain 1 life. But again, what are we trying to do? Sanctum of Ugin, we're going to keep that in. It's pretty cheap. And now we're going to move on to the staples of Urza. Without these, you don't have Tron. So, fortunately, if any of you are familiar with Tron, these are really cheap cards. I don't know why, completely honest with you. They're just cheap.
It's the Tron lobby, man. They've been controlling Wizards for years.
So, yeah. Some of your staple spells, though, in Tron are going to be the Chromatic Sphere, the Chromatic Star, and the Expedition Map. The Sphere and the Star are particularly interesting because they're mana fixes to help you get some of your sort of 1 green or 1 red cost things. We're going to keep those because they're also cheap, and you also get to draw a card. It can be really beneficial, especially when you're rolling the dice hoping to clear Tron, and that's all you got. Honestly, it's a pretty good pickup. The Expedition Map, we're going to keep that. It's a turn 2 pick up part 3 of your Tron or part 2 of your Tron if you're having a really rough draw. Oblivion Stone, excellent card, really expensive again. We're going to be switching that up with something else. Kozilek's Return, this is a beautiful card that Green-Red Tron can run that is not extremely expensive, and it's important enough that we keep it in there when we start running against certain decks that we're going to keep it in there regardless. Ancient Stirrings, excellent card. Sylvan Scrying, same thing. This is these are pretty staple Tron. You're going to want these. They're going to make it so that Ancient Stirrings gives you a little bit of draw power when you've got Tron and you just need to start digging for some of your stuff. The sideboard, we are pretty much going to nuke the sideboard. None of this is going to happen. We're going to keep the Relic of Progenitus, I believe, but Thought Not Seer, Dream On, that's not. Pretty sure 1 Thought Not Seer is close to the cost of the entire deck. Maybe 2 of them, but
wow,
they're not cheap. Thragtusk, Adios, Abrade. I don't generally run Abrade, and this is a deck tech. I'm not against it, honestly. I'm not running it, but you could. Nature's Claim, really handy. I keep them. They're not expensive, and they help you when you're dealing with all sorts of different enchantments that would normally be a problem for you, or an artifact, depending on what you're looking for. And All Is Dust. I don't run that. You could. I feel like it's a little redundant, but maybe. Anyway, to move back to the deck and see what we've done with it now, we are going to...
So this is your build of budget Eldrazi Tron.
Yes. So we're going to make some changes here. First thing is Karplusan Forest. I can't remember how to make this full screen or highlight this card.
Push the middle button on the mouse.
Ah, yes. The middle button on the mouse. Well, that's not happening right now. I'm using a laptop because I'm cheating. Anyway.
Control. We can pause it. I have a mouse we can use.
I can't. Yeah, I always use the middle mouse button.
I don't know how to do that.
The Alt. Here.
Did you find it?
No. Oh, it's running. That's why I was like, why is my mouse freaking out? It started moving all over the screen. Okay. And just go from here.
Sure.
Should I end it, or would that be easier?
I don't know.
Splice it?
What do you think?
Probably not.
Okay.
All right. So, Karplusan Forest. First thing here is, like I said when we were looking at the other deck, Karplusan Forest. Like I said, it gets the green-red, but it doesn't give your opponent a life. It takes one away from you. 1,000 times worse, but 100 times cheaper. So we're going to use it. If you have the money for it, and if you just have it, honestly, go for it. It's a big part of having the ability to, survive depending on what you're playing against. If you're playing against like a fast burn deck, that can be a problem. We're keeping the Sanctum of Ugin. It's a one of. If you get it, awesome. If you don't get it, it's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of a cool card. They're not too expensive, and it's worth going. Keeping the Ancient Stirrings, moving to Nature's Claims. Like I said, we're going to keep these. Chromatic Spheres, Chromatic Stars. These are staples of the Tron format. Can't do anything without them. Expedition maps. And I thought that Pithing Needle would actually be pretty handy in here, depending on... You could make an argument for a sideboard. You could maybe
you
just
usually see main deck Pithing Needles. What's
Yeah.
your logic for that?
Well, my logic for it is, say I'm running against some like a specific, like a tribal,
Okay.
and I'm playing against Merfolk, and I need to pop out some key Merfolk. I was thinking it would be kind of handy. I could see an argument for putting in Nature's Claims. You could do any number of things. Honestly, you could run. I don't. Maybe you could run 2 more Kozilek's Return. Part of it came down to the honestly the budget side of it. Pithing Needle's kind of cheap. I needed some stuff. It's a little bit of utility. It gets you there. Open to suggestions on that one if somebody has a better idea.
Yeah, if you have any ways that you might improve this deck, just put them in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Kind
of piece this together. Like I said, trying to be as budget as I could, but still trying to be as competitive as possible. And like I said, I've gotten a lot of scoops with it, so let's just say it's pretty competitive. Sylvan Scrying, again, Tron staple, nothing. Kozilek's Return, we're keeping those. The value of the 2 damage to each creature, anytime you're dealing with tribal, you're dealing with, it's sort of white weenies, anything like that. Your Kozilek's Return is just super, super handy. When you play an Eldrazi creature spell later in the game, 7 damage to everything else is pretty clutch. The only real downside to this, however, is that the cards we had to replace the big Eldrazi with also get nuked by Kozilek's Return. It's not the most ideal game state, but you got to make some sacrifices here.
Yeah.
Okay. Perilous Vault is a direct replacement for the Oblivion Stone.
Okay. How does it do?
I've had great experience with it. I don't have too many complaints with it. It's a little bit faster than the Oblivion Stone. One thing that you'll notice about the Perilous Vault is that you can drop it on turn 4 and play it on turn 5. Pretty straightforward. Play it. If you happen to have Tron, depending on how you get it, you could, in theory, play it and pop it on turn 4. And you don't actually have other things to play on turn 4 if you play this. If they're going off, honestly, I've had really good luck with it. I think it's an excellent replacement. If you're familiar with Oblivion Stone, you get to save your cards, though. So you get to pick a card that
one
saves
at a time.
One at a time. It's a little
like
bit
this
slow.
one. It's a little more reckless than Oblivion Stone, but that's cool.
Yeah, I would consider playing it even if I wasn't playing budget.
Yeah.
It's hard to say whether or not. So now we move into where did we save all of our money?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of different cards here than in the competitive or I don't know.
Yeah, the competitive version.
Competitive
That's like I said, the green-red Eldrazi Tron is it's a pretty competitive deck that frequently it places in top 10 in a lot of different competitions around the tours. But like I said, those are all really expensive cards. So we had to figure out some other stuff. One of those things being a Steel Hellkite. This is probably the worst of all of the cards we've added. I gotta be honest, the only reason I don't take it out and put in 2 more Myr Battlespheres is I'd like to have a little bit of variety. Maybe even take one out and put in another Battlesphere. It's tough if somebody's running a card and they for some reason say some idiot's running a Pithing Needle.
Main board? Main deck?
Main boarding a Pithing Needle, perchance. And they happen to call off your Battlesphere, and you're just running 4 Battlespheres, you're really light on answers to that. And so I'm not the biggest fan of the Hellkite. Honestly, in all my times playtesting it, looks like I accidentally removed that card.
Yeah, you did. You double-clicked trying to get it. It doesn't matter.
It'll be fine.
Technical difficulties, but you know.
It's not a 59-card deck. I accidentally removed one of the Karplusan Forests, and so don't worry. It's a full deck. Anyway.
He is playing with a full deck.
that I can't attest to. But the Myr Battlesphere is a surprisingly fun card.
Doesn't this just remind you of the Technodrome? This is like totally the Technodrome with those little mouser things from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It's the Technodrome. Oh, Krang?
Krang?
Krang. It was Krang.
I think it was, yeah.
Krang and the Technodrome.
That's immediately what I think about.
No one's going to get that reference.
I know. Look it up. Google it.
Google it.
You youngins out there, you go Google it.
It's worth the view. You'll like it. You'll thank us for it later.
All right. So Myr Battlesphere.
Myr Battlesphere, aside from the part where none of your opponents are even going to probably know exactly what it does, and you'll have some advantage there.
Yeah. I like that strategy, actually. I use that a lot in my budget decks, where they don't know what this card is. They've never seen it before, and they have to read it, and they're just like, whatever. Just let it come out into play.
Well, one fun thing about this is it comes into play and it drops 4 1/1 Myr artifact tokens. Okay. When you attack with the Myr Battlesphere, only attack with the Myr Battlesphere, you tap the other 4 tokens, and the Myr Battlesphere deals direct damage to whatever you're attacking of however many Myr you tap. And then on top of that, it gets +X+O. So say you tap all 4 of them, it's now an 8/7, but it deals 4 damage directly to whatever you're attacking, planeswalker or player. So it's kind of handy. That's
pretty cool.
So even if you're getting chump blocked, don't be afraid to attack with the Myr Battlesphere because it dumps 4 damage through regardless of how many are blocking it, which is, it's not trample, but it's budget trample.
Yeah, it's budget trample, but I also like that you can just like aim it at a planeswalker separate from your attack. Just like, no, go away, planeswalker. How did you find that?
I've come across it, honestly, playing it. I was trying to think of cards. I basically opened up Gatherer and just went to colorless cards and clipped through them and found cards that I thought, this might be weird. Like I said, the Hellkite, its ability is pretty okay. The biggest reason I jumped off of this, the biggest reason I keep the Hellkite though is the X. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X whose controller was dealt combat damage. This is pretty handy when you're dealing with any sort of swarming aggro it's got some utility. I'm not gonna say it's worthless, but you're almost never gonna use that fire breathing on it.
Yeah.
But it is flying, and so it does get damage through sometimes. That's why it's there. So, is it extremely vulnerable to your Kozilek's return? Absolutely. But, like I said, it can be maybe useful. I've used it a couple of times for that destroy permanence. So, it's kind of like a ratchet bomb, honestly. Yeah. It's basically a ratchet
dragon.
But you'll notice that you don't have to tap. So say you want to destroy everything that costs 1 and 2 and 3. You have the mana for that because you have Tron.
Yeah.
So remember that.
Yeah.
And you can destroy all tokens for free. Remember that too.
Cool.
Now, moving on to World Breaker, that's one of the cards that we're going to keep. This card is not that expensive, and honestly, the value that you get out of it is pretty big. This is one of the cards I almost always try to get out there. It's really handy. Just... It has recursion. Whenever you cast it, now notice it says cast, that even if they counter it, you still get to do this. That's what's so clutch about that.
Hear half the audience being like, woohoo, and half the audience going, ugh.
Just, yeah.
The control players out there are like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, this is great if you're playing against control, because you're not even that worried. Now, one of the things you can do here is... you cast him, don't worry about the counter.
Yeah.
Blow a land. Then what you do is pay 3, sack a land, and return him from your graveyard to your hand.
It's disgusting.
It's not the cheapest recursion, but it is recursion, and if all they're doing is locking down the game, you can also lock down the game by blowing up their lands. So, and that's really handy too. Something to remember is if somebody's put, say, like Spreading Seas on one of your lands, and you just want to get rid of it, this will pop that off, and then you magically have 3 more or 2 more. If it's they probably put Spreading Seas on your tower.
You've mentioned tribal, swarming, and Spreading Seas.
Yes.
In this conversation. Does Merfolk give you some trouble with this deck?
Fast decks can be a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of those fast tribal decks are going to be your biggest problem.
Okay.
They're just not that easy for the deck to get around. It'll be your biggest matchup, and it'll be fun, so you can actually have a good time with it. So, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, we dropped all 4.
He
cards.
is ready to go to EDC for sure.
He's absolutely ready.
He's the biggest partier on the planet. Look at that guy. He's got all this glowy stuff. Got wings. He's totally. This is one of his Instagram pics for sure.
And he's dirt cheap. So hey.
Whoa. That okay.
I'm just saying, there's a lot to like here. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a great card. You're going to be dropping those cards just simply because you don't have. It's just in the budget deck. It's not going to happen. So if you can get him, or if you have one, awesome. Throw him in. Maybe replace one of the Hellkites with it. It's not a big issue. I would probably... Hellkites would be first on the chopping block. Possibly, actually, Pithing Needle would be first on the chopping block. But anyway. Ugin, pretty straightforward card. Play Ugin, win. I don't know of... once Ugin hits the table, you do its minus ability to drop anything small.
Target opponent scoops.
Yeah, play Ugin, target opponent scoops.
Force target opponent to scoop.
If you don't have anything that you really need to do, if you don't need to exile a bunch of stuff, just start dealing 3 damage to their face, and next turn, win. So Ugin wins on his second turn.
Yeah.
Or third turn, I'm sorry. Second turn in play. He wins.
Yeah.
And so, it's a great card. Now, Pathrazer of Ulamog... This isn't the best Eldrazi. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
It's not that great. You're gonna sometimes play him, and when you do, if they don't have an answer, you will still win.
Right.
It's just not as
easily
fast.
pathed.
He's pathed. He's Oblivion ringed. He draws a lot of hate.
Yeah.
Truth be told, you might want to replace him. He doesn't generally get to do his cool stuff, but when he does, that Annihilator 3 is just so gratifying.
Yeah.
So you're probably already winning when you play him, but either way, like I said, maybe you can consider things. But Brad, did you have any questions about the main board other than the Pithing Needle?
No. I mean, I get how it all works. Like, yeah, makes sense. Let's talk about the sideboard.
All right, let's move things along here. Oh, that'll work. So, the sideboard is 100% different, mainly because all of those sideboard cards are really expensive.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So we got to find somewhere else. I think the only things that I kept were the Relic of Progenitus, and there might have been a Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, I think I've looked up Relic, and it's been prohibitive for me to get it. So it must be, like, not that budget.
Relic is about $3, I think. $2 or $3.
Okay.
So,
but it's, like, the staple sideboard card of all staple sideboard cards.
Honestly, if you don't have relics, you should be putting them in all of your sideboards in Magic.
If you pick up a playset on Magic Online, then it's going to go in a lot of decks. So it's like pretty good to pick up, but still I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. So, like I said, relics, they're not 100% budget, but they're almost every deck you ever play should have it. Mm-hmm. I personally really like Grafdigger's Cage. Mm-hmm. It's a really powerful card. Anytime you're dealing with any sort of graveyard abilities, it's just, I think it's cheaper than Relic.
I don't know.
I can't remember. We might have to check that one, but I've got another Perilous Vault, so you can drop that one. Go for the 4th for Perilous Vault if you need it. Say you're running against something where you just really want to be able to blow them. Crucible of Worlds. This is a fun card. I like this card because you can play your lands from your graveyard, and you can, say you're in some long drawn-out battle where remember Worldbreaker? Sack a land. Well, say they're blowing up your lands, you've got some land hate, whatever.
A lot of people have Tron hate in their
Tron
sideboard.
Hate. Well, guess what?
Field of Ruins and stuff.
You have Tron hate.
Yeah.
With Crucible of Worlds. Not really worth more than one of, because quite honestly, it's pretty bad.
Also, this looks like a sweet poster from an 80s sci-fi movie. You'll have to look that up too, youngins, but just trust me.
But this is a card that I actually really like. I would have probably considered putting this into just a regular green-red Tron sideboard. It's pretty powerful, honestly. When you play it, anytime you're dealing with, say, anybody who's running Mutavaults, any sort of man lands, everything, it just shuts them all down. But it doesn't shut down Tron.
Yeah.
It's a worse Blood Moon, but it's a better Blood Moon if you're running Tron.
Yeah.
And they're surprisingly cheap.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend this card, even if you're not running a budget version of Tron, just because it's actually really good. So anytime you're running into anything like that, remember to sideboard in some Blood Suns. I wouldn't do more than 2 because it's a card where there's really no value to getting more than 1 out. So you really don't want to have a lot of them in your hands.
Yeah.
But 2 is a great number to have in there. Phyrexian Revoker, just because the Pithing Needles aren't enough.
It's another Pithing Needle effect.
Yeah. He's in there, again, like I said. We're shooting some budget stuff. It's not the best card, but if you have something else, that's an open slot. Put in there something you'd like. You could make an argument for a 3rd Blood Sun, honestly. I could see it. Maybe you could do an argument for another Crucible of Worlds. I could see it go a number of different ways, honestly. Elixir of Immortality, I'm kind of weird, and I like to throw those in a lot of my decks.
Anti-burn.
Anti-burn, it's kind of handy. Anti-mill.
Oh, yeah. It's a little bit of both.
It's not the best card on the planet, but, a 1 of isn't a bad thing. Nature's Claims, these are great cards. You could easily make an argument to put a 3rd Nature's Claim in over the Phyrexian Revoker. And
then you got some good old-fashioned lightning bolts.
Lastly, we've got the Lightning Bolt. Honestly, I like them. I think they're handy. You could argue to play some with something else, but sometimes you've got a lot of cards in your hand that are now pretty worthless. Well, you could throw 4 lightning bolts in and hope for the best.
Cool. So, thanks for explaining budget Eldrazi Tron. I think that's pretty awesome. I think a lot of people will really like this deck. And so, from your experience, it wins pretty often, right? Like, I mean, you're not playing like super competitive leagues or whatever, but
yeah, I don't play the super or the competitive leagues, but if you're just looking for a deck to have some fun with, you might even be able to play the friendly tournaments. Honestly,
Yeah.
I can see it. There's a couple changes like the Pithing Needle that you might want to make if you're going to go into the tournaments with it. But if you're looking to have some fun and really enjoy watching some people scoop on turn 3, I highly recommend it. One thing to note is that I'm going to be putting a number of videos out on this. I've been playing it a lot recently and having a lot of fun with it. So keep your eyes open. I should have more of these, and you can see how it plays.
yeah, subscribe to the channel so you can see more of Joshua playing budget Eldrazi Tron. And another thing that would be really awesome is if you have any additions that you would make to this, just comment in the comments below this video and let us know, what you would add or take away or what changes you might make. I think that'd be really awesome. Maybe we could, innovate, make some more, update our deck and play it for you guys. So thanks for watching, and thanks for the rundown on budget Eldrazi Tron. Prepare for making a lot of your opponents very sad.
Well, thanks, Brad.